Welcome to the Love Government. I'm Dennis Leary. We're doing a series of talks called Sex Lover, and this is now the 8th talk in this series. We are delving into the history and the her story and our story of who we are, being mediated through the love culture and the love government, and the lovers who are working with us. Sometimes they're called ancestors or spirits or souls. We invite them into sessions like this because we're reenacting love language and we're talking about love things, so they're welcome to come in. They're helpers, invisible, but we can sense that they're present. I want to talk a little bit about the interface between what we have today, what we had in the pagan culture, and then go back to the love culture and see how these things kind of line up, the progression of them in these three stages. First there was the love culture, called the lovesious level, and there's the pagan culture, which means just common people, and that's really, it's kind of to the unconscious level. And then the modern mind is the consciousness, what we're conscious of, and how we got how the flow between that. It's on a timeline, and it's interesting to me anyway. I'm a former Catholic priest and a monk, so I've been deeply into religion, so it's going to have a religious bent to it. And then after a worldly hiatus of 10 years, I went into a New Age religion for 20 years or something, till I got out of that. I was, I guess, about 60 years old. And so I've had the New Age and the Old Age religions, so I'm going to do this with a religious kind of a bent to it, because I know that world. And religions are not restricted to churchy kind of things, or mosques or synagogues. The modern world is a secular religion. It's based on money and power, profit and porn, drugs and paraphernalia like that. It has its rituals, it has its ceremonies, it has its taboos, its dogmas, its punishments, and its dress. The judges wear black dresses, the graduates black dresses and these hats. And there's all kinds of secret societies and things in modern culture. Inner sanctums, boardrooms where powerful men sit together and make policy, decide who's going to live and who's going to die. They rig the money system in these boardrooms and back rooms, bunkers that they have, special palaces, closed gated communities. I mean, it's a religion, but it's a secular religion now based on money, rather than God per se. But I know a little bit about the religious system, so I'll speak in terms of that. Starting with the love culture and the sexual rights that they had, they revered and participated and enacted in very intimate ceremonies, rituals, going by the moon, going by the flow of waters, what was happening in the community. Centered around the body of the lover. They were lovers, and this means the body of a man and a woman in sexual terms, especially focusing on the body of the woman as the source of life, the source of water, the source of blood, babies, plants growing outside, the stars, everything was the lover's body. We talk about the waters that flowed from a woman. Now, menstruation is a water, but it's a red water because it has iron in it. So it's water that flows from the woman's body, and it's red or white, depending on menstruation or ejaculation. These waters were essential to life. They were part of the love community. They were natural. They were, they were ejaculated, let go openly. The menstruation was a great honor. Oh, wow, you're menstruating, that's wonderful, because you're giving life out through the blood. and they were used. They were used for health purposes, rubbed on the body, and then ceremonial purposes also. Then when you get past the love culture, I would say it lasted 25,000 years, say around year 100,000. And then patriarchy came in after about, it was there all along, but patriarchy is based on jealous men who are jealous of the power of woman. Woman had the natural power through her sex and her birthing. And so jealous men, certain men became jealous of that. They wanted the power. They hated the fact that the woman was the center. They wanted to be the center. And so they gradually became adept at undermining the culture by telling a different story. And in the pagan culture, we have the stories of the gods and the goddesses. The gods were up in heaven. They weren't down on the earth anymore. And they were male-dominated. The head of the gods was Zeus or Jupiter. And in other cultures, they had different names. Thor. They were warrior gods with the power, the thunderbolt, the spears. They had the power to kill. It all started with patriarchal men who killed animals to derive the blood power. The power is in the blood. So men could not bleed naturally like women do and not die. They couldn't do that, although they often tried by slitting their penis or something, some weird custom that has endured right up until modern times. But that doesn't work too well. So they had to find another source, and that was the animals. Started killing little animals because they could get the bloodlust that way. The killing gives you a blood rush, an adrenaline rush. You're killing an animal. Hunting. So then hunting is born with this, and it bonds the men together because they have to work together to, especially the bigger animals, they have to start working together to trap them or kill them or massacre them. Then they began eating the animals with the blood-soaked flesh, and so they bulk up with iron. The upper bodies become bulked up and strong from the fighting and the killing and the wielding of weapons and stuff. They became strong, and they ate the blood-soaked meat, and so their blood count rises. And even today, the blood count of a man is higher than a woman's, despite the fact that a woman bleeds. Why is that? Probably because the men were the hunters. We call it a hunter and gatherer society, which is another lie by patriarchy. It wasn't really a hunter society, although there were lots of hunters eventually, but in the beginning there was no hunting. Not by human beings. They didn't hunt. It was a gardening and gathering society, not a hunting and gathering society. Hunting came in later. This is the beginning, the big beginning of patriarchy. Hunting then they bulked up with the bloodlust, killing the animals. That led to killing bigger and bigger animals. Then they had to follow the animals out of Africa, and that gets all the immigrations up into the cold countries where they had to kill animals, you know, get their fur and skin, you know, all that kind of stuff. Then men started to kill other men, and it gets more and more sophisticated. But in essence, what it is men turning from lovers to killers. And it's still going on today in sophisticated forms. Millions of people are being killed through the money system, through the war system, through the lie system, all kinds of ways. The woman culture is being killed by the propaganda, the media. Everybody's in on the game. Religions, academia, the media, sports, entertainment, food industry, the drug industry. They're all in on the same game, which is to make a killing with your money. Make a killing with your money. Play the stock market, you know, set it up so you know who's going to win, and place bets. The house rules. It was a big story called The Fall of Man, or Paradise Lost. We lost our love culture. almost totally, down through the years, starting with patriarchy. So you get down into the, like 10,000 years ago, then you got the arrival of the first kings, and then the building up of civilizations, the big cities, the great cities that could store grain and make people slaves, the domestication of animals, make them slaves, invent the money system, make us all slaves to the money system, the interest system, the usury system, and on until we get to today. We get through the pagan cultures, and then we get to what we have today. I was talking about in the love culture how the woman's waters and her body was the center of love, of the love action. These sexual fluids were revered, the body was revered in all kinds of variety of sexual ceremonies. Then that shows up later. It gets diluted though. As the culture is attacked by patriarchy in all kinds of different ways, the patriarchs have to win the women over to their side, so they tell them false stories. Oh, you're going to be so much happier if you eat this meat. You'll be bulked up. You'll have all this energy. You have this rush. Plus, it'll be great for your sex life. So eat the meat. You know, cooperate in killing the animals. Make these animals pets, you know, because that'll enhance your sex life. And if you don't do it, if you don't take this offer, you know, you're going to have a problem. And that's the violent force. And the men are violent and forceful now. So they will end up, if they can't convert the women to their way of thinking, they will end up killing them in one way or another, or raping them, or instituting something like marriage where they have property rights then over the woman. She's basically their slave, and then their children also carry their property on, and we go on in that vein, which is not easy to talk about. That's the development of patriarchy. A patriarchy-ruled society, and that's the fact today. We can trace that through the water. The water was initially the woman's sexual fluids. You get into the pagan times and the early Christian times, which I know a little bit about, and you have the Mass, which is a ceremony in which you eat the body and drink the blood of Jesus. It's no longer a woman at the center, it's now a man at the center of things. In this case called Jesus Christ, at the center of the Christian religion. And every patriarchal religion has a man at its center. And the big man is God himself. He's the arch-patriarch of all, and he controls this whole pyramid system through language and story. So you can see what happened to the original story and the original waters. They become translated or rewritten into something like the Catholic Mass, where a man now says, eat my body and drink my blood, drink my waters. You can see where that came from in the love culture. Now it becomes part of a Christian ritual, patriarchal Christian ritual, in which the man, it doesn't make any sense anymore. It's like cannibalism. Eat my body, drink my blood. We do that under the signs of bread and wine now. But it's a rewrite, and it's a confabulation. It's a confusion of all kinds of things and fusing things together in a way that defies reason. It has to be accepted on faith. A man as Savior has to be forced by faith. It's not reasonable. It's not natural. It's not organic. It's a big lie. Alright, let's stop here and go on. This has been the 8th episode. Thank you for hanging in there. It's a tough road to hoe. It's a long and winding road, sometimes a very lonesome one, but it's worth every step we take. Thank you. Love, love, always love.